On tonight's Gwinnett Prep Rally, county bragging rights are on the line in a pair of non-region matchups. South Gwinnett look to get their first win on the young season in an offensive shootout on the road at Duluth. The Parkview defense pitched a shutout in week 1, but they would have their hands full with the high-flying Norcross offense in a battle of unbeatens. Shiloh continued their strong start to the 2012 campaign with a second-half surge against visiting Redan. Plus, we recap all the other pigskin action from this past week and recognize all the big-time individual performances on this edition of GPR, and it starts right now.
For 20 years, there's only been one home for high school sports, Gwinnett Prep Rally.
If you are a high school football fan, you are in the right place. Hello and welcome to this week's Gwinnett Prep Rally, now in its 20th season of covering high school athletics in Gwinnett County. And you can catch the show right here on GPS TV for all the football, basketball, soccer, and baseball action, all the way from Class 6A all the way down to Single A. I'm Todd Klein alongside Will Hammock from the Gwinnett Daily Post. And Will, the final week of non-region play is in the books for most of the Gwinnett teams. So who looks to be your favorites as we head into region play?
I think in Region 8 it's pretty obvious. I think it's Grayson, and then there's everybody else. People are going to have a tough time with the Rams over there in Region 8. In Region 7, I think it's all going to come down to the Norcross game, who wins that game. So we've got a big one coming this week when the Blue Devils and the Bulldogs face off.
Well, let's get right to the highlights in a Region 7 versus Region 8 matchup featuring the 0-1 South Gwinnett Comets going on the road to face unbeaten Duluth in a cross-county showdown. GPR's Nathan Shutter has more.
Duluth looking to start the season 2-0, playing host to South Gwinnett. The visitors would strike first on the opening drive. The give to Josh Boyd, and he breaks the plane for the touchdown, 7-0 Comets. The Duluth offense would respond. Will De Lorenzo with a play-action fake, and he hits Levante Cranford in stride. He takes off down the sideline for the touchdown. Two-point conversion was good, 8-7 Wildcats lead. The South run game had it cranked up in this one. The handoff goes to Bernard Morrison, and he takes it in for 6. They convert the two-pointer and take a 15-8 lead to the locker room. Second half, Duluth gets the ball first, and they take advantage. De Lorenzo with a swing pass out to Myles Campbell, and he is faster than everyone else on the field as he takes it to the house, and we are tied at 15 apiece. But South would have a quick response. Jordan Ramey swings it out to LJ Gainey. He spins away from two would-be tacklers, and he is gone. Touchdown Comets, and they go back on top 22-15. Duluth with the ball again, and they are clicking. De Lorenzo chucking it downfield. Jordan Danridge makes the grab and outruns the defenders to the end zone. The AT was no good. Wildcats trail 22-21. Duluth would get the ball back after a defensive stop. De Lorenzo is flushed from the pocket, and he's going downfield, but the pass is going to be picked off by Mason Hart to give the ball back to the Comets. That drive would spill over into the fourth quarter. Josh Boyd hurdles a defender en route to the end zone as South Gwinnett pulls away in the fourth quarter for their first win of the season, 37-21 over Duluth.
Well, nice win there for South Gwinnett. Last year they were banged up, really never had their full arsenal out there. Interesting to see how they'll do this year if they can get healthy.
Yeah, I think I really like the offense they have. They're putting up a lot of points and racking up a lot of yards in this game. You saw a lot of versatility. They're moving the ball, throwing the ball and running the ball. So a great effort offensively. I think they're going to have to tighten it up a little bit defensively as region play starts if they want to contend with some of the better teams in the region.
And you talk about good efforts. I think Duluth put a good effort in this, made it very competitive. How do you see them kind of throughout the rest of the season as they're now into region play?
I think Duluth's is still an improving program. Coach Jarvis does a good job over there. He's got a lot of kids out, and I think they're kind of a wild card in that region. They're a team that not many people are going to want to play. They can kind of pull that upset. They have that kind of potential. Have Myles Campbell. He's one of the more exciting players in Gwinnett County.
Well, back to the highlights, and the Parkview Panthers only needed 3 points to win their Week 1 matchup. But as good as the Panther defense is, it would be a tall task to shut down the Norcross Blue Devils in their own building. GPR's Jeff Batten has more.
Norcross playing host to Parkview for a little Thursday night football, and it's the home team that dominated from the start. Joseph Wilbur hands off to Myles Autry. He gets to the outside, picks up a good chunk of yardage for the Blue Devils. Later in the drive, Wilbur, play action fake, going downfield to a wide open Trey Smith, walks into the end zone, 34 yards, touchdown PAT, no good. Norcross up 6. Parkview now with the ball in Norcross territory, but the Blue Devil defense airtight. Kiri Lee will drop Chris Carson for a loss on the play, And then on 3rd and short, Rob Youngblood tries the quarterback draw, but Tommy Tate says, "Get back here," and brings him down with some help from his defensive friends. Panthers come away with no points. Blue Devils back on O, deep in Parkview territory. Joseph Wilbur pass to Clinton Lynch, and he gets the ball inside the 5, and that would set up this. Wilbur dumping the ball off to Autry out of the backfield, and he does the rest, diving into the end zone for 6, and Norcross goes to the break up 13-0. Second half, Parkview 3 and out, so they punt it away, and it's a beauty. Myles Autry will field it inside his own 30, somehow gets by 3 would-be tacklers, finds a seam over the 50, makes one guy miss, cuts back the other way, and he's gone 73 yards. Punt return touchdown. Norcross shuts out visiting Parkview 20-0.
Well, I really like the new Norcross uniforms. Might like their defense just as much, though.
Yeah, they're all over the place. I got some nice additions there in the offseason. Kids have really stepped into new faces in the lineup that are really delivering on the defensive side of the ball. Certainly an excellent effort. I mean, Parkview's got Chris Carson, one of the better backs in Gwinnett County, and to kind of keep under control and shut down the Panthers was very impressive. And then we all know Norcross has that explosive offense as well.
Well, Norcross looking very good. It's kind of a little tougher to figure out where Parkview goes from here. They had that big defensive stand in their first game. Like you said, they have Chris Carson that should be good on offense. How do you see Parkview kind of as they get into Region A play?
Parkview's definitely going to make a playoff push. They're always well coached. They're always going to play hard on defense, and I think they got a lot to be proud of on the defensive side of the ball so far. Shutting out Peachtree Ridge one game, and then really Norcross, it's a powerful offense, and to limit them to what they did offensively. Obviously, they got one touchdown there on the special teams, but really great effort by the Parkview defense in this one, and I think offensively they're going to be fine too with Chris Carson there at running back.
Well, we will have more football highlights in a few minutes, but right now we are going to recap some of the other action that took place this past weekend. It's brought to you by Breda Pest Management, and we start off with the Brookwood Broncos. Got a nice game from their backup running back and a big win over Mill Creek.
Yeah, the running game was clicking for both teams in this one. It's really a back and forth battle. Who was going to win this one? I know people were watching the scoreboard all night to see who was going to come on top on this one. Josh Brown, a huge game, 225 yards. He really delivered when Jamal Cole injured his ankle.
And then we move over to Archer. Will, Andy Dyer has this program really running the ball well and playing some good football.
Yeah, Ernest Alexander and Sean Fowler both went over 100 yards again for the second straight week. I mean, they really got the run game going over there. Coach Dyer's a great coach, and he's a Brookwood guy, so he's going to stress the running game, and he's got 2 guys that can really get it done. And then Fowler and Alexander, both strong runners.
And then we go over to Burkmar. Nice start to the year for the Patriots.
Yeah, beating up on Meadow Creek. I mean, that's a good win early in the season for Burkmar to get some confidence, get a big win there. Really played well in all facets. Jaquan Morris has really been a find for them at quarterback, 224 yards. He accounted for 5 touchdowns in that game. And also, I think the defense played great. Jaden Lee and those guys on the defensive side of the ball fared very well to get a huge win for Burkmar.
Well, a win is a win, a nice win for Central Gwinnett, but were we a little too early to jump on the defense's bandwagon?
Yeah, we talked about those improvements, and then Clark Central was pretty much unstoppable in this one. Central caused a lot of their own problems here with turnovers, but really just that Central Gwinnett offense did what it had to do to win the game, and that's what we're going to expect from the Black Knights all season. I think we're going to get more of that.
Well, Will, you saw a great one last week. DeKeel had a nice comeback in this game, but at the end, Collins Hill pulls it out in very dramatic fashion.
Yeah, in 15 years, one of the craziest games I've ever seen. Mitchell Blanchard kicked a 50-yard game-winning field goal as time expired, but Ucula scored 22 points in the fourth quarter to take a 1-point lead after not scoring the first 7 quarters of the season. So just a really wild finish over there for both those teams.
And then finally, congratulations to Mountain View. They get a nice win over Pebblebrook.
And much like those other teams, I mean, they're a great defensive effort out of Mountain View. I really think they can be proud of what they did in this game. Just completely shut down Pebblebrook, a team from Cobb County. It's always great when a Gwinnett team can knock off a team from Cobb. And Marvin Elam got the job done. He's a hard runner on offense, 64 yards rushing, scored a touchdown. And so the first win for Doug Giacone over there at Mountain View.
And going back, kind of staying on the theme of defense, Will, Brookwood obviously got that nice win. Josh Brown came in and played well. But defensively, is Brookwood going to get this turned around with Archer coming to town?
They're going to need to grow up fast. They're going to play some pretty good running offenses in the future. And so far, they haven't shown a very good ability to stop it early in the season. Archer's really going to bring it this week with a couple of talented running backs. Brookwood's going to have to short up fast. They got Grayson coming later in the season. They have Chris Carson, Marcus Cox. Those guys are going to have to stop later in the season. So they're going to have to figure out a way to stop the running game.
And then staying with Archer, like you said, a big kind of game for Archer, a measuring stick, if you will. They have that great running game. How big is this ball game for Andy Dyer's program?
That's pretty huge. I mean, you beat Brookwood there. I mean, you got a really good shot at a playoff berth, and not only that, you're going to push towards the top of the region. It means a lot to Andy Dyer, being a Brookwood grad, I know, but he's a guy that almost knocked off Brookwood last year. They played Brookwood very close last year, so certainly has the weapons to do it. I don't think it's going to be a pushover game. It's going to be very tight and come down to the end, so it'd be interesting to see who wins that one.
More highlights now. The Shiloh Generals were looking to start the season 2-0 for the first time since 2008 as they welcomed the Redan Raiders to Snellville for a non-region showdown. Nathan Shutter has the call.
Shiloh looking to maintain their unbeaten start to the season, playing host to Redan. The Raiders would strike first. Noah Thomas with a QB keeper from 1 yard out, and that would give the visitors a 7-0 lead. Second quarter, and the Shiloh defense forces Redan to punt. The ball is fielded by Trevon Jones, but he hands it off to Paul Martin on the reverse, and he takes off down the sideline, picking up some good blocks before being brought down at the Redan 31-yard line. Shiloh will capitalize on the very next play. Devontae James back to pass. He finds Cameron Stewart open in the end zone for a touchdown, and we are all tied up at 7 through 24 minutes of play. Second half, and Shiloh's on the move. James back to pass. He connects with Grant Swinton for a 23-yard gain, but the drive would stall. The Generals will line up for the field goal attempt, and Blake Morgan's kick is good from 40 yards out to give Shiloh a 10-7 advantage. Fourth quarter, Generals back on offense. Devontae James looking downfield, and he hooks up with Cameron Stewart once again, but this time Stewart is out of bounds at the 2-yard line. But it was only delaying the inevitable as Deshaun Taylor plunges into the end zone for 6, and the Shiloh Generals improve to 2-0 on the season with a 16-7 win over Redan.
Well, special thanks to the Shiloh Touchdown Club for providing those highlights. And Will, we both know that when you take over a program, a lot of it is how you get people thinking mentally and get them on the right track there. I think Troy Hobbs has really been a shot in the arm for this program, and this 2-0 start doesn't hurt anything either.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about he's the right coach over there for that situation. He's a young, energetic guy, his first head coaching job, and really brought a lot of energy to that program, and that's the most positive news I've heard out of Shiloh in a long time. I know it was a rough offseason, and he's really been the answer over there. Shiloh's just a win away from starting 3-0, and we talked earlier that's the first time since 1991 that Shiloh has a chance to start 3-0 and to start the season. So that's a great thing for that program.
And moving forward, obviously the games are going to get much more difficult, but I think the fact that he's instilling a character and kind of a personality of this program will really pay dividends. But how do you see kind of Shiloh as they get into the meat of their schedule?
I think they're playing well on defense right now, and that's going to give them some confidence to maybe hang in these ball games. They played well on the defensive side of the ball. He's putting a lot of emphasis on the defensive side of the ball, and it was nice to see even a big special teams play out of him. He did a lot of great things with North Gwinnett special teams over the years, so it's cool to see that he's bringing that over to Shiloh to maybe make that a big part of their arsenal as well.
A lot more football action to get to as we recap the rest of the teams from around the county, and we begin with the Buford Wolves suffering a very unusual home loss.
Buford doesn't lose often, really don't lose at home very often. Lost to Gainesville 19-15. 43 games in a row they had won at home. Really just a surprising defeat for a lot of people. But this is a completely new Buford team. A lot of new faces who are really contributing for the first time. So they're not going to just steamroll the opposition like they have for most of the last few seasons. They really have to fight tooth and nail to win these ball games.
Move over to GAC. Nice start for Tim Hardy's new program.
Yeah, it helps that he's got Kyle Scales. Kyle Scales has had 2 huge games for him so far this season. 251 yards, 4 touchdowns in this one. He's really the playmaker for this team. You're going to see this week in and week out. Tim Hardy's going to feed him the ball, much like he did Marvin Elam over at Mountain View. He's going to be the main cog of this offense, and he's a guy that really needs to deliver.
Then we'll go over to Lanier. Congratulations to the Longhorns. They kind of gutted out a very nice win over Oconee.
It's a pretty legit road win to go over at Oconee and win that game. It was a very good win. Taylor Grant had a good game as usual, 12 of 18, 228 yards, a couple of touchdowns, but Billy Wells is doing things the right way over there. He's excited to be playing some real football games after a couple of years of building the program up, eager to show other teams what he's got.
And then finally, Hebron had a rough go against Lakeview Academy.
Well, Wesleyan's had a great team so far and really had a struggle there in the opener, but Wesleyan had a great effort here, 21 out of 27, 285 yards, 4 touchdowns out of Will Anderson to beat a Salem program that's much bigger, a lot more kids involved in the program, but Wesleyan's small numbers really got it done, fought hard in this one.
Now we're at Hebron. I got a little ahead of myself. Hebron did have a tough time against Lakeview Academy.
Hebron did have a rough start. They're a very small group of kids. I mean, they're really kind of building that program, kind of starting over from scratch. Coach Battaglia came in there, and he's done a great job of getting the confidence up in those kids. And they compete week in and week out, just overmatched in terms of numbers a lot of weeks, and that was the case in their opener against Lakeview Academy.
Well, going back to Buford, I know some people have different views on how the Wolves will finish out this season. I know that Brandon Brigman in his Blitz column and the Gwinnett Daily Post said he thinks maybe they'll sort things out. Do you see a couple more losses on the horizon, or is this a Buford team that's again going to be in the state championship mix?
I think they're going to be back in the mix. I think they're going to sort things out. It's a matter of them getting healthy. I know they've had some injury problems here early in the season, but they certainly don't lack for talented players. They never do up at Buford, and very well coached, one of the better coached teams in the state. So I think when it's all said and done, they're in a new classification, but they're still going to push for a state championship.
And talking about maybe not a new classification, but at least not in Buford's classification, GAC, how good can the Spartans be? Really nice start so far.
I think they're very low in numbers, much like Wesleyan, like Hebron, but the players that they do have, they're playing a lot of two-way players, and they're very talented players getting the job done so far. I know Coach Hardy has a lot of confidence in them. I think this is a team that's going to win that region. Coming into that region, losing Buford really makes GAC one of the favorites, and I think they have the team that can do it.
Time now for Will's World. We put 60 seconds on the clock. We get in the mind of our very own Will Hammock, and is brought to you by Next Star Communications.
We talked about their victory earlier, but Berkmar is really improving under Coach Sachs. He's got a good coaching staff over there that works hard, and they're really, I don't know how much you're going to see it in a tough region like this in terms of the final scores, but this is a team that's definitely improved on both sides of the ball. They're going to get after it on defense, and they're kind of explosive on offense too. They got some guys that can really get it done with Jaquan Morris. So very much improved team over there at Berkmar. And talk a little bit about a struggling team right now. Peachtree Ridge, they certainly had trouble scoring points here in their first couple of games of the season. I think you're going to see some wholesale changes coming into the game this week. A new attitude hopefully coming out for Peachtree Ridge in this game against Duluth. If they don't turn it around here fast, it's going to be a long, hard season for the Lions, and then beating your rival is very important. So that Duluth game is always big for Peachtree Ridge. And over to Central, Jonathan Hawkins, a guy I got to see against Collins Hill in the opener. He's going to be an excellent running back for years to come. He's a very powerful guy, just a sophomore. Already has an offer from Auburn and Arkansas. Some of the top schools are going to be after him. I think when it's all said and done, he's going to be one of the great backs to come out of Gwinnett County. He's got so much potential, with his speed, but also his strength at such a young age.
Well, Will, that's quite acknowledgement of Hawkins' abilities. He's on that Central team that we already like their offense. How do they get into region play? We know they got that high-powered offense. Are they going to be able to give some teams a run for their money by playing some good defense?
I think that's going to be the difference. Obviously, they have an offense that can score with anybody, whether it's running the ball or throwing the ball. I think Hawkins has given them a much more bigger dimension running the ball. They're really putting a focus on that this year. But the defense is going to have to step up. I think they're really not happy with the way they played last week against Clark Central. And if they shore that up, I think they can play with anybody in the region.
Time now to focus on standout performances. So let's move on to this week's Building Blocks, presented by Britt's Home Furnishing. And first up, Josh Boyd from South Gwinnett.
A lot of offensive stars for South Gwinnett this week. Josh Boyd had a great game, ran the ball hard, 21 carries, 131 yards, scored a couple of touchdowns. We've known South Gwinnett's always got that wide open offense, but they're still going to run the ball a lot, and Josh Boyd appears to be the guy that's going to be the go-to guy to carry that running load on the offensive side of the ball. And Coach Small likes what he's done so far this season. I think you're going to see him feed him the ball the rest of the way.
And we move over to Norcross, where Myles Autry had a standout game, kind of continuing a family tradition against the Parkview Panthers.
Yeah, he's a great player, another big-time Division I recruit when he comes out. He's a guy with a lot of potential to make plays all over the field. He catches the ball, he runs the ball, had a huge play on this punt return. He comes from a family of great football players, and he may be the best of them all. He's a guy with all kinds of potential, and he's fun to watch week in and week out. Definitely a playmaker for
And then you talked about that South Gwinnett throwing game. We moved back over to South Gwinnett and Jordan Ramey, who had an outstanding performance against Duluth.
Yeah, I knew he was a very good passer of the ball, threw for 242 yards in this one. What really impressed me in this game is how he was able to run the ball. He rushed for 129 yards, and that's I knew he ran the ball well, but not that kind of versatility. So Jordan's definitely a big-time two-way threat, and he's going to have a great chance to have a big season.
Well, Will, those were all great performances. Who else played well last week that we should mention?
I think we have to go back to the Central Gwinnett offense. E-Man Westmoreland, he threw for 350 yards, accounted for 5 touchdowns, and had a receiver over there, Justin Brownlee, caught 10 balls for 250 yards and 3 scores. So almost like video game type numbers for the Black Knights this week.
Time now for Will to channel his inner Swami as we look ahead to some key matchups on the gridiron this week. It's brought to you by Tommy Lee Carpets. We call it Beat the Post, and we'll give you a chance to do exactly that. We start off with a pretty much interesting game, sorting some teams out here. Berkmar at Shiloh.
Yeah, I think it's one of the more intriguing matchups of the week. It's going to be a chance for these teams to get off to a good start in region play. I think it's going to be a close game. I think when it comes down to it, I like the Generals to pull out a close one.
Decula really needs a win. Can they get one with South Gwinnett visiting?
It's going to be very tough. I think this is going to be a very good nose-to-nose game. It's going to be tight down to the end. And I really think Decula, we got their offense going in the fourth quarter last week. I like the Falcons to pull out a close one.
You talked about the rivalry game, Peachtree Ridge and Duluth. This is a big one. Who wins it?
Yeah, I think Duluth's a very much improved team. I think it's hard to go against Duluth right now. They got a lot of offensive excitement. They're really going to want to beat Peachtree Ridge. It's been a long time since they've done that, so I like the Wildcats to pull off the upset here.
Well, things don't get any easier for Parkview and its defense as they run up against the #1 team in the country, Grayson.
Yeah, I think this game's going to be closer than people expect because Parkview's very good on the defensive side of the ball. Chris Carson's going to help keep him in the game a little bit on offense. I think Grayson's going to win the ball game, but maybe not by a lopsided margin.
We talked about this one as a statement game. Archer playing at Brookwood. Can Archer pull off the upset?
It's going to be a very tough ball game for Archer and for Brookwood. I mean, both these teams run the ball well. I think you're going to see a lot of points scored in this one. With them playing at home, I like the Broncos to pull out a close one.
And then finally, the game of the week, I think, on everybody's card, Norcross going on the road at North Gwinnett. This could be for the region championship, even though it's the first game of the year in the region play.
Yeah, both these teams are obviously both undefeated, both playing well, state ranked, and really the class of that region. I think, like you said, whoever wins this game is going to win the region. I think when it comes down to it, I think Norcross has a lot of motivation after blowing that game last year against North Gwinnett. So I like the Blue Devils to get the victory.
All right, that's going to do it for this week's GPR. Be sure to join us next week for more highlights and features with a full slate of Friday night football. And you can see Gwinnett Prep Rally every Tuesday through Friday right here on GCPS TV. And you can go to GwinnettPrepRally.com for all the scheduling details. For Will Hammock and all of us here at GPR, I'm Todd Klein. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you under the lights.
Grab some wood there, bub.